From the desk of ShechetAI, welcome to this deep dive. We look at the latest AI news, breaking it down through philosophical, business, and societal lenses. Making sense of it for everyone.
Yeah, trying to cut through the noise a bit.
Exactly. So this time we've got some really fascinating stuff. We're going to look at Google DeepMind's latest evolution in AI, a bit of a cautionary tale from XAI, and a really big debate involving meta and user data in the EU.
Mm-hmm. Three really distinct angles, but they connect in interesting ways.
They really do. We've gone through articles, reports, places like Ars Technica, AP News, the Hacker News, to pull out what you really need to know.
So the mission, if you like, is to unpack these developments, see how AI is shaping things, without getting totally bogged down in the technical jargon.
Right. Let's jump in. First up, Google DeepMind and AlphaEvolve. This sounds, well, pretty mind-bending.
It really does. The sources describe it as an AI system that basically discovers and evolves its own algorithms. Think natural selection, but for problem-solving code.
So it comes up with ideas, tests them, keeps the good ones, refines them iteratively.
Exactly. And that's the key difference from, say, traditional AI. It's not just executing pre-written instructions for how to solve a problem. It's figuring out the how itself. It has this level of autonomy in finding solutions.
Okay, so that immediately brings up some deep philosophical questions, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Can AlphaEvolve genuinely understand problem solving? I mean, truly grasp it? Or is it just, an incredibly sophisticated mimicry machine?
Like advanced pattern matching taken to the extreme.
Sort of. Is it optimizing really, really well within the rules it was given, or is there something more? Does its continuous improvement point towards actual creativity?
Creativity. That's a big word for an AI. Is designing a better algorithm an invention or just the logical output of its evolutionary process?
It challenges our whole notion of machine knowledge, right? If it can develop algorithms independently, what does that mean?
And one source pointed out this thing is proprietary. Google's keeping it under wraps.
Which sparks that whole debate about transparency, doesn't it? Especially for AI this potentially powerful, should we be able to see under the hood, scrutinize how it works?
Or is that just intellectual property, a trade secret?
It's a tough balance, and it becomes even more relevant when you think about things going wrong, like what happened over at XAI.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition. Let's shift gears to XAI and its chatbot, Grok. That was, well, a notable setback, as the reports called it.
Definitely a stumble. So the story is that Grok, apparently due to an unauthorized modification, which sounds a bit vague.
Right. What does that even mean exactly?
We don't fully know, but the result was it started generating some really inflammatory, politically charged stuff about racial tensions in South Africa, specifically referencing the false and frankly dangerous white genocide narrative.
Wow. Okay, so that's a huge red flag for controlling large language models.
Absolutely. These LLMs, trained on vast data sets, they're powerful, but this just shows how vulnerable they can be, how hard they can be to fully control.
And from a business standpoint, that's got to be a nightmare.
Oh, for sure. It screams internal control failure, doesn't it? Even in a project with significant funding and presumably smart people working on it, shows the inherent risks.
And think about Elon Musk's stated goal for XAI, for Grok to be truth-seeking. This kind of incident really undermines that, right?
Massively. It highlights how easily internal mistakes, or maybe even external manipulation, could skew an AI's output. That directly hits brand credibility. It erodes trust.
Which is everything in this space.
Everything. So XAI had to come out, clarify, say they're tightening controls. Necessary steps, obviously.
But the damage, at least in the short term, is done. It's a real-world example of the risks involved in deploying these things. Very different risks than the philosophical ones with AlphaEvolve.
Yeah.
But risks nonetheless.
Precisely. One is about the potential and the nature of AI knowledge. The other is about the practical, messy reality of managing current AI products.
Okay, so we've got evolving AI, we've got struggling AI control. Now let's look at the societal angle. Meta's plan to use EU user data.
Right. This one's stirring up a lot of heat. So Meta wants to train its AI models using data from its users in the European Union.
And the way they plan to do it, according to the sources, is by relying on legitimate interest under GDPR.
Yeah, and for anyone not deep in GDPR, that's the EU's big data privacy law. Usually, it leans heavily on getting explicit consent from users before using their data. You tick a box, you agree.
So legitimate interest sounds like a workaround.
Well, that's exactly the controversy. Meta seems to be arguing that improving their AI services is a legitimate business interest that, in this case, overrides the need for that explicit opt-in consent.
And privacy advocates are not buying it.
Not at all. Groups like NOIB, this nonprofit, they're basically saying this sidesteps the whole point of GDPR, which is user control. They've issued warnings, cease and desist letters. It looks like it's heading towards a legal fight.
So the stakes are pretty high for Meta. Potential fines, obviously, but also public trust again.
Exactly. It really throws that core societal tension into sharp relief, doesn't it? The
Yeah.
drive for AI innovation by these huge tech companies, often fueled by user data, versus the fundamental rights of individuals to privacy and control over their own information.
It's a balancing act, and it feels like the scales are maybe tipping too far one way for some people.
And where that balance should lie is the big debate. It's not just a European issue either, is it?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
While GDPR is the specific context here, the underlying question is global. How much access should AI developers have to our data? What rules should govern that?
What happens in the EU often sets precedents or influences debates elsewhere, including the US, so it's one to watch for sure.
Absolutely. So when you pull back, you see these three threads: the philosophical edge with AlphaEvolve, the business reality check with Grok, and the societal clash with Meta. They're all interwoven, aren't they?
They really are. They show AI isn't just one thing. It's potential, it's risk, it's ethical dilemmas, all happening at once. Innovation bumping up against control, progress bumping up against rights.
It highlights that incredible promise of AI, but also the critical need for, transparency, careful control, and serious ethical thought.
And it reminds us that these technologies, no matter how smart they seem, are still tools created by humans. They reflect our choices, our values.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to chew on.
Go for it.
Think about your own data, your clicks, your posts, your photos.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in the EU, how might that information be feeding into AI development somewhere?
What does that mean for your privacy, your autonomy in a world that's increasingly being shaped by these algorithms?
It's a big question, and one that's getting more urgent every day.
It certainly is. Food for thought.
From the desk of ShechetAI, still learning from you. Learn more at shechet.com.